You did it, you're so excited, and you finally have your digital product. But reality starts to sink in and you realize, oh man, I don't have a budget to market this thing. So what should you do if you want to sell your digital download product, but you don't get any money to do it? If you don't have any money to market your product, should you just give up? I mean, that's the easy path, right? Okay, I'm not about easy, I'm about simple, but not easy. And that's why today's video is all about how to market your digital product without any money or budget to do that. I'm gonna show you exactly how I was able to do this and how my clients are doing this every single day so that you can do the same. But first, make sure you're subscribed because you won't wanna miss all the content here that shows you how to go even deeper with this marketing thing sans budget. And while you're at it, give this video a like because we do this content for free and that will really help us out. Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Christina Scalera and I help you to sell your digital download products on autopilot so that you can just wake up to money in your bank account. If that sounds good to you, then make sure you've already liked this video so you see more of my content because I'm gonna show you how to do this every single day of your life. If you don't have any money to market your product, then you're gonna need a different resource to get the word out that your product exists. And this can come in the form of several different things. The first thing is OPA. You guys are all familiar with OPP? Yeah, you know me. No, this is other people's audience. Don't Urban Dictionary that. You're not gonna like what you find. But other people's audience is fair game. I don't think there's an Urban Dictionary for that. One of the best ways that you can leverage this OPA is to get on somebody else's podcast. And one of my favorite podcast strategies to get word out about my digital products without spending a lot of time pitching and just kind of feeling icky about putting myself out there in a bigger way is to leverage my experience on one show for a different show. So what this actually looks like is I will be going on a smaller show, maybe even somebody that I know has a podcast or someone I've talked to on Instagram, and I will use that experience to show the next host who has a little bit of a bigger show. I'll show them proof that I can actually be a good guest on a podcast. As someone who had a podcast back in the day, it was called Creative Empire. It had over 1 million, actually 1.4 million downloads by the time we wrapped things up. I know that as a podcast host, they're looking for good guests. So they want someone that can be at a very minimum, proficient in talking to their audience and isn't going to just drag stories on or ramble or basically do what I'm doing right now. Any podcast you go on is looking to see if you're a good guest. And nobody wants to have on guests that are a bad interview or they just are kind of too quietly talking through the interview. Maybe they're not sharing things, like they're not really giving much to the conversation. It's kind of a one-sided conversation that the host is having with themselves. I know most of you wouldn't do that. You'd be really great guests, probably better than you'd even give yourself credit for. But the problem is that the host doesn't know that. So they need to see some little bit of proof that you're going to be on other people's podcasts. And that just helps them to trust that you're going to be a good guest. That way you can keep leveraging up to the next bigger show on hand. And I successfully use this strategy to get my shop on podcasts like Cathy Heller's Don't Keep Your Day Job and Jenna Kutcher's Goal Diggers. So this is a strategy that really works. You start with the smaller podcasts and then just keep trading up, keep pitching yourself, showing proof along the way, saying like, hey, I just did this podcast. Would you consider having me on your show? And that's going to help you to eventually get on some of those bigger, like multi-million download podcasts. Another great resource for tapping into OPA is doing joint venture webinars. And I like to do these from a really educational standpoint. So we've all seen like the Russell Brunson perfect webinar, like secret thing. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about really delivering value to someone else's audience. And this is how I kicked my shop off. If you've heard my story, I had 9 people on my email list after months and months of blogging and nobody really taking the bait and buying anything from me. I thought, wow, okay, my products suck. And then I did a joint venture webinar in front of a couple thousand people. Someone put me in front of their audience because the educational content I had was very solid. And the sales pitch at the end left a lot to be desired, but it was okay because I spent so much of that hour entertaining and educating people on the topic of contracts. And then I just kind of mentioned the contract shop at the end, which is my online store. And people went crazy. I sold $3,700 worth of products in one weekend, which is pretty big for someone who had sold just $2 worth of printables on Etsy, every now and then before this. Joint venture or JV webinars work really well because people are always looking for a new and exciting angle to bring to their audience. And we know that content creation can be really difficult and challenging to think of what to talk to our audiences about. So if you're bringing someone else in for the week and they're doing that job for you, you can go on vacation or just take a little bit of a breather, sit back that week and maybe work on some passion projects of yours while someone else takes the content over for that week through the joint venture webinar. Your number one goal to have a successful JV webinar is to find two things. You want to find someone who has a complementary audience to you, and that just means that they serve the same exact people as you, but in a different capacity. So for example, if you're a designer, you're going to want to find some copywriters who have an audience because people usually need copy at the same time they need design. If you're a boudoir photographer, for example, maybe you're working with some fitness coaches who are seeing their clients have great results and they want to memorialize those results with a boudoir shoot. You can get really creative. So that's one of the things you're going to be looking for in these JV partnerships. The second thing you're going to be looking for is that they have a bit of an engaged audience. So that doesn't have to be a huge audience. I actually don't really care about the size of the audience. I just kind of got lucky with that first webinar. It was a big engaged audience. I've since done a lot of JV webinars, like at least 200. Seriously, over the last 7 years since I've been in business with my online store. And the thing I've consistently found is that the people that have an audience of 60 people showing up, but they're really engaged and they stay all the way to the end and they're asking really good questions, I would rather present to those people all day long versus the people that have an audience of like 60,000 and like 100 people show up and they don't really ask questions and they're just not really involved. So you're always going to look for someone that has an engaged audience, and you can kind of tell through their social posts, like do those posts get a lot of traction? Do they get a lot of engagement and likes and comments? Those are the people that are going to have the warmest, most engaged audience that you're going to want to partner up with. So if you don't have money, we've talked about one strategy, which is leveraging other people's audience. And that's a great resource, is to use a different audience than the one that you don't have. And the second tool that you can use instead of money is time. And this is where your organic content strategy is going to come in. And I approach organic content in a totally different way than most people. And it really helps those of you out there that are feeling a little burnt out to have more success with your organic content. So when I first started my shop, I tried to be everywhere all at once. And that meant that any kind of blog post I was putting out suddenly became a newsletter, which also became 10 Instagram posts and 6 pins on Pinterest, and you get the idea. It was just kind of pandemonium to create and do all of this stuff myself. I was spending over 40 hours a week just designing all the graphics for these things because this was in Photoshop. Templates, Canva, all that stuff didn't exist. Me, as a non-designer, had to come up with all this stuff from scratch, plus I had to create the content and promote it organically. I wouldn't recommend that anybody do that. That was like a little extra in the worst way possible. What I do instead is now my content layering approach. And the hardest part about this approach is that you actually have to have a little bit of patience, which is a mindset thing. But the way that you can adapt my content layering approach for your digital product is you can choose the channel that you're most interested, most likely to use on a consistent basis, and get really good and fast at posting there. So if that's TikTok for you, great. Get really good at creating a TikTok at least once a day consistently and get in the rhythm of doing that, whether you're batching and then posting every day or you're just like creating on the go like I tend to do for my TikTok. By the way, I just did a really cool video about how to grow your TikTok, so I'll link that below. Make sure you just like tab right, click that, and watch it next. So once you know what medium you want to use and how often and consistently you're going to be posting there because you've gotten into a good rhythm and a pattern of using that, then you'll be able to layer on the next form of content, whether that's repurposing your TikToks into blog posts or YouTube shorts or something like that, or adding a whole nother layer of content. For example, I wouldn't be adding a blog onto my content strategy if I still was trying to get the hang of TikTok. I would focus just on TikTok because naturally over time with practice, you get better and faster at posting every day. Once you know that you are consistently always gonna have at least one TikTok going a day, then you can start to write one blog post every single month. And maybe you bump that up to twice a month and then once a week. So that's what you're gonna do, and you give yourself time to do this. So if you have a full-time job, this might be a content layering approach that takes you several months to create. And if you have lots of time on your hands, let's say you're a student and this is your full-time job outside of work, then this is where you're gonna do TikTok, and then maybe a month later, you're gonna add the blog, and then you're gonna add the newsletter, and so on and so forth every single month. So everybody is gonna be on their own calendar with this thing, but basically you are just gonna take it one platform at a time and then just lightly layer on the next one until you feel confident to do that again and again and again. And that's what's going to give you that fast growth and momentum in your business, because when you try to do everything all at once, nothing works out. But if you try to do this slowly and just kind of add it over time, it becomes really normal to you to get in this mode of content creation. And that's what's going to help drive your sales forward, because every single day or every week or month, whenever people are expecting to hear from you, they're going to get that next piece of content from you to remind them about your products and that they exist. And just as a reminder, I always have my Launch Your Shop Academy, which is available for you, that goes into this 24/7 whenever you're ready to make that investment. So now I don't want to hear any excuses, because in this video, I've shown you how to grow your audience and sales, even if you don't have any money for any kind of paid advertising campaigns. So I don't want to hear it, but I do want to hear in the comments from you if you liked any of these strategies, and if you are wanting to see me cover any of these strategies in a little bit more detail, like if you want more examples or you want me to just break it down even further. You should have a really good idea of where to get started with content marketing, whether it's with other people's audiences or your own that you're building from scratch with your organic content using my special layered approach. But if you're still wondering where this following of buyers is going to come from, then you'll want to make sure that you click the video that just popped up on your screen and watch that next. In that video, I cover exactly how to grow even if you don't have any following at all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in just a couple days because we're posting twice a week now. Bye everyone.